The clang of metal filled the air, a rhythmic sound that echoed through the nearly empty gym. I pushed the weights up, feeling the familiar burn in my muscles as I fought against the growing weight pressing down on my heart. It was supposed to be a release, an escape from the chaos that had invaded my life, but tonight, it felt like an echo of my frustration, my anger, and my betrayal. Just hours earlier, Kelly and I had shared a tense dinner that felt like an emotional minefield. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She was distracted, her mind seemingly elsewhere, and I kept trying to reach her through the silence. But every attempt to bridge the gap between us only deepened my frustration. Her laughter felt forced, her eyes evasive, and I knew in my gut that something was wrong. After she left the table in tears, I stumbled upon her phone lying on the kitchen counter. Without thinking, I picked it up, my heart racing. I had always respected her privacy, but desperation made me reckless. It was the last thing I wanted to do, but the nagging feeling of betrayal wouldn't let me be. As I scrolled through her messages, I found it. A string of texts between Kelly and Thomas, an influential businessman whose charm had captivated her for months. They were planning a secret rendezvous, filled with flirtatious emojis and intimate promises. Each word was a dagger, twisting deeper into my chest. I felt my heart drop to my stomach as I read the final message. "Can't wait to see you tonight." The rage that surged within me was overwhelming. I dropped her phone as if it were on fire and stormed into the living room, where she was sitting, wiping away tears. "How could you do this to me, Kelly?" I shouted, the pain spilling out of me like an open wound. Her denial was quick, her face a mixture of shock and feigned innocence. "What are you talking about, Jake?" she said, her voice shaking. But I had seen the truth. It was undeniable. The weight of her betrayal hung heavy in the air, suffocating us both. That night, I found myself back in the gym, pouring all my anger into lifting weights. Each repetition was a release, a desperate attempt to turn my pain into strength. But no amount of physical exertion could fill the void left by Kelly's betrayal. I left the gym that night with sweat dripping from my forehead and a heart still aching from the wounds she had inflicted. Days turned into weeks, and the betrayal clung to me like a shadow. I found myself back at the gym every night, surrounded by the smell of sweat and rubber, feeling the adrenaline rush as I pushed my body to its limits. I immersed myself in training, using the pain of physical exertion to drown out the turmoil in my heart. It became my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the reality of my crumbling marriage. One evening, as I was wrapping up a set of bench presses, I noticed a figure nearby, intensely focused on his workout. He was about my age, with short dark hair and a determined look on his face. There was something familiar about him, but I couldn't quite place it. As I finished my set, he caught my eye and offered a nod of acknowledgement. "Hey man, you push yourself hard," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "I'm Rick, by the way." "Jake," I replied, feeling a strange sense of camaraderie form. We began to chat between sets, and I soon discovered that Rick was also dealing with the aftermath of a broken marriage. He spoke of his wife's infidelity with a shocking candor that resonated with me. "I caught her with someone from work," he said, his voice tinged with bitterness. It felt like my whole world fell apart in an instant. As we shared our stories, I felt an unexpected bond forming. We were two men, thrust into the same storm, seeking solace in the weight of our burdens. The anger and pain that had isolated me began to feel a little lighter as I listened to Rick's experiences. We both had our demons, and somehow we found comfort in the shared understanding of betrayal. With every passing day, our friendship grew stronger. After workouts, we would grab protein shakes and talk about everything: our ex-wives, our dreams, and our hopes for the future. I found myself looking forward to these conversations, the way they momentarily distracted me from the ache of betrayal. The gym became my sanctuary, a place where I could push my body to its limits and forget the chaos of my personal life, even if only for a moment. It was my refuge from the pain of betrayal, and each rep felt like a step away from the darkness that had engulfed me since Kelly's infidelity. The rhythmic sound of weights clanking together, the smell of sweat mingling with the scent of rubber mats, these sensory details grounded me in the present. I found solace in the physical exertion, using it as a way to channel my anger and frustration. It was during one of these sessions that I first encountered Rick. I was in the middle of an intense workout, feeling the burn in my muscles as I pushed through my last set of squats. I noticed him out of the corner of my eye, a tall guy with a buzz cut and an impressive physique, lifting weights with ease. His focus and determination caught my attention, and there was something about his presence that made me feel oddly drawn to him. After I finished my set, I took a moment to catch my breath and decided to approach him. "Hey, you've got a solid routine going there," I said, trying to break the ice. He turned, flashing a genuine smile. "Thanks, man. Just trying to keep up the grind. I'm Rick, by the way." "Jake," I replied, shaking his hand. "I've seen you around. You've got some serious strength." Rick chuckled, brushing off my compliment. "I just put in the hours. But it's all about consistency, you know?" We fell into an easy conversation, discussing our workout routines and what motivated us to stay fit. I shared a bit about my recent struggles, mentioning that I was going through a tough time due to my wife's betrayal. Rick listened attentively, his expression shifting to one of understanding. "Man, that sounds really rough," he said, his voice steady. "I went through something similar not long ago. It helps to talk about it, you know?" I was taken aback. "You too? I thought I was the only one dealing with this kind of pain." "Trust me, you're not alone," he replied. "It's more common than you think. I think we all wear these masks to hide our struggles, but it's important to let it out sometimes." His candidness struck a chord with me. It felt good to share my story with someone who understood, someone who had faced a similar betrayal. I found myself opening up more than I had anticipated, recounting the day I discovered Kelly's affair and how it had shattered my world. "I never thought I'd be here," I admitted, feeling a mix of vulnerability and relief. "It's hard to see a way forward when everything feels so broken." Rick nodded, his expression earnest. "I get that. When my wife cheated, I was lost for a while. But I started channeling that pain into my workouts. It became a way for me to regain control over my life." His words resonated deeply. The idea of using my pain as a driving force for change sparked something within me. "I've been so focused on revenge that I haven't thought about my own healing," I admitted, realizing the truth in his statement. "Revenge might feel good in the moment, but it won't fill the void," Rick said. "What you need is a new direction, something positive to focus on." From that day forward, I began to see the gym not just as a physical escape, but as a place for emotional healing. Rick and I made a pact to hold each other accountable, encouraging one another to push through our workouts and talk openly about our feelings. We became workout partners, sharing tips and pushing each other to reach new limits. Every session became a release. We laughed, challenged each other, and created a bond rooted in our shared struggles. I found myself looking forward to those workouts, eager to catch up and hear about Rick's progress. He became more than just a gym buddy. He was someone who genuinely cared about my well-being. As the weeks passed, I realized how much I had grown. The anger and bitterness I once felt began to fade as I immersed myself in fitness and formed this new friendship. I felt stronger both physically and emotionally, and I was beginning to understand the value of connection and support. Rick's influence helped me shift my perspective. Instead of focusing on the betrayal and my desire for revenge, I channeled that energy into bettering myself and finding ways to heal. With each workout, I shed layers of pain, and the support from Rick fueled my determination to move forward. I was ready to embrace the new path I had found, one filled with hope and possibility. The day had finally come. We were ready to put our plan into action, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had spent the last few weeks gathering evidence, meticulously documenting Thomas's shady dealings. With Rick by my side, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, the weight of my anger transforming into a focused determination. We decided to start with a charity gala that Thomas was attending. It was the perfect opportunity to gather intel and put our plan into motion. The evening was set to be glamorous, filled with the city's elite, and Thomas would undoubtedly be there, eager to flaunt his wealth and charm. As we arrived at the venue, I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. The grand hall was adorned with sparkling lights and elegant decorations, but my focus was solely on Thomas. We slipped into the crowd, blending in among the well-dressed guests, each of us armed with a small camera to capture evidence of his wrongdoing. I spotted Thomas across the room, his charismatic smile on display as he mingled with attendees. I felt a surge of rage as I watched him laugh, oblivious to the chaos he had caused in my life. Rick and I positioned ourselves strategically, our eyes glued to him as he moved from group to group, exchanging pleasantries with unsuspecting guests. As the night unfolded, we observed Thomas closely, looking for any sign of his illegal activities. It wasn't long before we struck gold. I noticed him slipping away from the main area, heading towards a private corner of the venue. Rick and I exchanged a quick glance and followed him, our hearts racing with anticipation. We crept closer, carefully avoiding detection. Through a partially open door, we caught sight of Thomas engaged in a hushed conversation with a shady-looking associate. They were discussing a business deal that reeked of corruption. I could barely contain my excitement. This was the evidence we needed. I discreetly raised my camera, capturing every moment, every word. My heart raced as I snapped photos, feeling the weight of our mission hanging in the balance. As the conversation reached a climax, I captured a crucial moment, Thomas sealing a deal that was clearly illegal. I felt a surge of triumph. We were one step closer to exposing him. In the following days, I threw myself into the gym with renewed vigor. The adrenaline from my workout sessions surged through me, and I felt like a different person. Each drop of sweat symbolized a part of my anger and betrayal that I was releasing into the atmosphere. I had transformed the pain into fuel, and every session became a testament to my resilience. I found myself becoming more focused, not just on building muscle, but on sculpting my mind and spirit as well. My sessions with Rick were more than just physical. They were therapeutic. He became a confidant, someone who understood the depths of my despair and was willing to lend an ear. I often caught him observing me during workouts, a thoughtful look on his face as if he were evaluating my progress, not just in the gym, but in life. One day, after a particularly intense session, he suggested we take a moment to talk. "Jake, you've made impressive strides," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But I can see you're still carrying something heavy. You don't have to go through this alone. It might help to share what's weighing you down." His words struck a chord. I had spent so long burying my feelings beneath layers of anger and frustration, convinced that I could shoulder the burden myself. "You're right," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm still struggling with what happened between Kelly and me." Rick nodded, his expression encouraging. "Talking about it can be liberating. You might find that sharing your story can help you process it." So, I opened up to him. I recounted the moment I discovered Kelly's infidelity, how my world had crumbled around me, and how, in the days that followed, I had felt utterly lost. I was consumed by thoughts of revenge, but now I just want to move forward, I confessed. Rick listened intently, occasionally nodding in understanding. "What you went through is painful, but holding on to that anger will only continue to hurt you. You need to find a way to let it go. It's okay to feel what you're feeling, but you shouldn't let it define you." His words resonated deeply. In that moment, I realized that I had been so focused on revenge that I had neglected the healing process. Maybe you're right. I need to channel this pain into something productive, something that will help not just me, but others too. From that day forward, our workouts became a shared journey toward healing. I learned to trust Rick not just as a workout partner, but as a friend who genuinely cared. He encouraged me to join him in community fitness events, pushing me out of my comfort zone. "You'll find strength in numbers," he assured me. "The more you connect with others, the more you'll heal." Together, we began volunteering at local charity events, leading fitness classes for underprivileged youth. It was eye-opening to see how many people were in need of guidance and support. The joy and energy from these sessions ignited a passion within me, and I felt a sense of purpose that had been missing since my marriage had fallen apart. The more I immersed myself in helping others, the more I realized that my journey wasn't just about overcoming betrayal. It was about finding ways to uplift others who were struggling too. As my connection with Rick deepened, I found myself contemplating a new direction for my life. The anger I once felt towards Kelly began to fade, replaced by a desire to use my experiences to make a difference. I shared my thoughts with Rick one evening while we were winding down after an intense workout. "Do you think it's possible to turn this pain into something positive?" I asked, wiping the sweat from my forehead. "I mean, to create a space where people can come together and find healing through fitness and community?" Rick's face lit up with enthusiasm. "Absolutely. We could start a wellness program, something that combines physical fitness with emotional support. It could be a haven for those who've experienced betrayal or loss, just like you." His suggestion struck a chord within me. The idea of transforming my pain into a force for good resonated deeply. I love that idea, I replied, feeling a surge of inspiration. But where do we even begin? Let's start small, Rick proposed. We can organize a weekly fitness class that incorporates group discussions. We'll invite people to share their experiences and provide a supportive environment. It could be a safe space for healing. I was on board immediately. We began brainstorming ideas for our first class, outlining a plan that focused not just on physical workouts, but also on fostering connections among participants. As we worked together, our bond grew stronger, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Over the next few weeks, we poured our hearts into planning the program. We created flyers and spread the word through social media. The excitement in the air was palpable as the date of our first class approached. I felt a mix of anticipation and nerves, wondering how many people would show up and if they would feel the same sense of camaraderie that Rick and I had found. On the day of our first class, the gym buzzed with energy. A small group of participants arrived, each carrying their own stories of heartache. I took a moment to observe the faces around me. Some wore masks of confidence, while others appeared hesitant and uncertain. I understood those feelings all too well. As we began the session, Rick led the warm-up while I prepared to address the group. "Welcome, everyone," I said, my voice steady. "Today, we're here not just to work out, but to find support and connection. We all have our battles, but together we can forge a path toward healing." After the warm-up, we transitioned into a group discussion. Participants shared their stories, revealing the pain they had endured. One woman named Emily opened up about her struggles with infidelity in her marriage, and her vulnerability sparked a wave of sharing. "I thought I was the only one," she said, wiping tears from her cheeks. "But hearing your stories makes me realize I'm not alone." The room filled with empathy and understanding. As I watched people open up to one another, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The program was beginning to take shape, becoming the safe space we had envisioned. As the media frenzy surrounding Thomas continued, I felt a pressing need to confront my feelings. One evening, I returned home after another intense workout, and the house felt suffocatingly empty. I had been avoiding Kelly, but the silence was unbearable. I found myself drawn to the memories of our happier times, the laughter that once filled these walls. It was time to confront her. I needed to face the truth, to understand why she had betrayed me, and to find closure, even if it meant confronting painful emotions. I took a deep breath, steeling myself as I dialed her number. "Jake," she answered, her voice a mixture of surprise and hesitation. "I didn't expect to hear from you." "I think we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Can you meet me at that cafe we used to love?" She hesitated for a moment before agreeing. I arrived early, the familiar smell of coffee mingling with the chatter of patrons. When Kelly walked in, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. She looked beautiful yet fragile, a shadow of the confident woman I once knew. "Hey," she said softly, sliding into the booth across from me. "Hey," I replied, my heart pounding. "I wanted to talk about what happened between us." Kelly looked down, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the table. "I know I messed up, Jake. I can't change what I did, and I wish I could take it all back." "Why, Kelly?" I pressed, my voice more intense than I intended. "Why did you do it?" She took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't know. I felt trapped, like I was losing myself in our marriage. I thought I needed something more, something exciting. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her confession hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been so focused on my pain that I hadn't considered her perspective. "But you didn't think about the consequences? You didn't think about us?" "I was selfish," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I let my desires take over, and I didn't think about the damage it would cause." As we continued to talk, I felt a strange sense of relief. She didn't make excuses, she took full responsibility for her actions. It was a conversation I had needed but never anticipated. I realized that while I had sought revenge against Thomas, I had also needed to confront the pain in my own life. With each passing week, our wellness program continued to grow, and I was amazed by the transformations I witnessed. Participants began arriving earlier, eager to connect with one another before class. The gym buzzed with energy as friendships blossomed, laughter echoed, and shared stories created bonds that ran deep. However, amid the joy of community, I faced my own internal struggles. While I had made significant strides in healing, shadows from my past still lingered. The journey of moving on was not linear, and there were moments when I felt overwhelmed by the emotions that crept back into my life. One evening after a particularly emotional session, I found myself sitting alone in the gym, staring at the wall. The memories of my time with Kelly flooded back, and I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. It was as if the pain I thought I had overcome came rushing back, and I felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions. Just then, Rick walked in, sensing my turmoil. "Hey man, you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I sighed heavily. I thought I was moving on, but some days feel harder than others. I keep thinking about Kelly and everything we lost. Rick sat beside me, his presence a comforting weight. It's natural to have those feelings. Healing is a process, and it's okay to have setbacks. The important thing is that you're not alone in this. We're all here for you. His words provided a sense of solace. I took a deep breath, appreciating the camaraderie we had built within our community. I want to be strong for everyone, but sometimes it feels like I'm just pretending, I confessed, feeling exposed. Being vulnerable is a strength, not a weakness, Rick replied, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You're creating a space where others can heal, and by showing your own struggles, you're giving them permission to do the same. That night, I decided to channel my feelings into my writing. I penned a heartfelt blog post reflecting on the ups and downs of the healing process, emphasizing the importance of embracing vulnerability. It felt cathartic to put my thoughts into words, and I hoped it would resonate with others who might be experiencing similar struggles. As I shared the post with our community, the response was overwhelming. Many participants expressed their gratitude for my honesty and openness. "Thank you for reminding us that it's okay to feel," one participant wrote. "We're all on this journey together." The encouragement fueled my resolve to continue pushing forward, reminding me that the path to healing was often filled with twists and turns, but that every step was worth taking. Just when I thought I was gaining a foothold in my healing journey, life threw another curveball my way. One day, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon a post that made my heart sink. It was a photo of Kelly and Thomas, looking happy and carefree, taken at a charity event. The sight of them together stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me: anger, jealousy, and betrayal. I couldn't shake the image from my mind. How could she move on so easily while I was still struggling? The jealousy I felt was raw and consuming. I had worked so hard to build a new life, and yet this single photo had the power to unravel everything I had fought for. Rick noticed my change in demeanor during our workout that evening. "You okay, man? You seem distracted." I hesitated, torn between the desire to share my feelings and the instinct to bury them. "I saw a post about Kelly," I finally admitted, my voice low. "She's with Thomas and it just hit me hard." Rick's expression shifted to one of concern. "Do you want to talk about it?" I took a deep breath, struggling to articulate the emotions swirling inside me. I thought I was past this, but seeing them together made me feel like I'm still trapped in the past. How can she move on so quickly? "Sometimes it looks that way on the outside, but it's not always the reality," Rick reassured me. "It's easy to compare your journey with someone else's highlight reel. Focus on your own path and the progress you've made." His words resonated, yet I couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy. It's hard not to feel bitter. I've put so much effort into healing, and it feels like she just skipped to the happy ending. Rick nodded, understanding the complexity of my feelings. "Just remember that your healing journey is uniquely yours. Don't let their choices dictate your self-worth." That night, I found myself grappling with the memories of my marriage and the dreams I once held. It felt like a painful reminder that life could change in an instant, and I was still learning how to navigate the aftermath of betrayal. Despite my struggles, I knew I couldn't let this moment define me. Instead, I made a commitment to focus on the life I was building alongside Rick and our community. The next day, I channeled my energy into planning our next fitness class, determined to create a positive experience for everyone involved. The day we launched our wellness program felt like a milestone in my journey. We hosted an introductory workshop at the gym, inviting people from the community to join us. The atmosphere was electric, filled with anticipation and the shared desire for growth. As I stood before the small crowd, I felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. I took a deep breath and began to share my story, how betrayal had shaken my world but had ultimately led me to this moment of transformation. I spoke about the importance of addressing emotional pain while nurturing physical strength. Rick followed with his vision for the program, explaining how he would incorporate fitness training into our sessions, helping participants build not only their bodies, but also their confidence and resilience. The room buzzed with energy as we engaged the audience, inviting them to share their own experiences. As the workshop unfolded, I felt a profound sense of connection with those who had come to listen. We laughed, shared, and supported one another. For the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer defined me. Instead, I was embracing the journey of healing. By the end of the workshop, participants were signing up for our program, eager to join us on this path to wellness. I could see hope in their eyes, and it mirrored the hope I had begun to feel within myself. As I left the gym that evening, Rick and I exchanged high fives, celebrating our success. "We did it, man," Rick said, grinning from ear to ear. "This is just the beginning." I smiled, filled with a sense of purpose. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but I was ready to face it, equipped with newfound strength and the support of a friend. Life was about to change in ways I never could have imagined, and for the first time in a long time, I was excited for what lay ahead. As our wellness program gained traction, the gym became a second home for many of the participants. I found joy in witnessing the transformation of not just bodies, but also lives. Each week brought new faces, new stories, and an undeniable sense of community that I had never experienced before. Rick and I spent countless hours planning workshops and classes that were not just physically demanding, but also emotionally uplifting. We wanted our participants to leave each session feeling empowered. The synergy in our joint efforts created an atmosphere where vulnerability was not just accepted but celebrated. I was amazed at how people opened up, sharing their stories of heartache and resilience. One evening, after a particularly poignant session, a woman named Sarah approached me. She had shared her experience of betrayal during our discussion, detailing the pain of infidelity that had left her feeling broken. "I've never felt comfortable talking about this before," she admitted, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Thank you for creating this space where I can be myself." Her words resonated deeply within me. I realized that our program was more than a fitness initiative. It was a sanctuary for those in search of healing. It reminded me of my journey, how I had felt so isolated after Kelly's betrayal. "You're not alone, Sarah," I replied, my heart swelling with compassion. "We're all in this together. Your story matters." As the weeks rolled by, more participants began to share their struggles. I was continually inspired by their resilience, and I found myself reflecting on how far I had come. The gym had become a melting pot of emotions, where everyone sought solace and understanding. We organized monthly support sessions that combined fitness training with group discussions. I often led these discussions, encouraging participants to delve into their emotions. Our pain doesn't define us, I would say. It's what we do with that pain that matters. During one session, a participant named Brian stood up, sharing how the community had given him strength to face his own demons. "I thought I was alone in this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But being here has shown me that there's a way forward. I can rebuild my life." His vulnerability sparked a wave of sharing. One by one, participants revealed their stories, the room filled with tears and laughter. It was cathartic, a release that allowed us all to confront the past together. I marveled at the strength we drew from one another. It felt like we were weaving a safety net of support. Despite the community I had helped foster, shadows from my past continued to loom over me. I had made significant strides in my healing, yet the echoes of Kelly's betrayal still lingered, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore them. One afternoon, while sorting through old photos for a new workshop presentation, I stumbled upon a picture of Kelly and me from our honeymoon. We looked so blissful, so in love. A wave of nostalgia washed over me, accompanied by a familiar ache in my chest. It was a stark reminder of the life I had lost, and I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Anger, sadness, and even a hint of longing for the person I once knew. That night, unable to shake the heaviness from my heart, I decided to reach out to Kelly again. Our previous conversations had been raw and enlightening, and I realized I needed closure. "Can we meet?" I sent her a text, my fingers trembling as I hit send. After a brief pause, her response came. "Sure, where do you want to meet?" We agreed on a park that had once been a cherished spot for picnics and strolls. The leaves were just beginning to change colors, a beautiful backdrop for a conversation that I hoped would bring clarity and closure. When Kelly arrived, I noted the uncertainty in her eyes, mirroring the turmoil I felt inside. "Thanks for coming," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "Of course," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been thinking a lot about what we discussed last time." "Me too," I admitted, taking a seat on a bench that had witnessed countless laughter-filled moments in our past. "I want to talk about what happened between us and how it still affects me." Kelly nodded, her gaze shifting toward the ground as if searching for the right words. "I've been reflecting on my choices," she began, tears pooling in her eyes. "I wish I could take back my mistakes." "You hurt me, Kelly," I said, forcing myself to speak without anger. "And while I've moved on in many ways, I still carry that hurt with me. I need to understand why it happened." As we talked, I felt the atmosphere shift between us. It was as if we were peeling back layers of hurt, exposing the raw emotions underneath. "I didn't think about you or our relationship when I got involved with Thomas," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I was selfish, and I lost sight of what really mattered." Her honesty struck me. I had spent so long buried in my anger and resentment that I hadn't truly listened to her. "I know I've made my own mistakes too," I admitted, feeling the weight of my choices. "But I want to move forward, to heal. Can we find a way to forgive each other?" Our conversation turned into a turning point, a moment of vulnerability that paved the way for healing. I realized that forgiveness was not just a gift I could give Kelly, it was a necessity for my own peace of mind. Holding on to anger was like carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones, weighing me down and preventing me from moving forward. Over the next few weeks, I dove into the concept of forgiveness. I read books, attended workshops, and sought advice from mentors who had navigated similar waters. With each step I took, I felt lighter, as if I were gradually shedding layers of pain. I began to understand that forgiveness was not about excusing the wrongs done to me. It was about reclaiming my power and finding peace. During one of our group sessions, I felt compelled to share my evolving thoughts on forgiveness. "It's a journey, not a destination," I told the participants, my voice steady and clear. "It's about acknowledging the pain, understanding it, and ultimately letting it go for our own sake." Rick chimed in, nodding in agreement. "It's about freeing yourself from the emotional baggage that drags you down. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to live without the bitterness." The participants listened intently, their expressions a mix of contemplation and hope. I could see that my words resonated with them. Just as they were learning to forgive themselves, I was beginning to do the same. The atmosphere in the room felt charged with potential, and I knew that we were all embarking on a collective journey toward healing. As the weeks passed, I found myself reflecting on my own journey with renewed clarity. I began to see my past, not just as a collection of painful memories, but as a series of lessons that had shaped me into who I was becoming. I felt grateful for the connections I had formed within the community. Each participant's story mirrored aspects of my own, creating a beautiful tapestry of resilience. One day, during a particularly emotional session, a participant named Laura stood up. "I never thought I could forgive myself for the mistakes I've made," she said, her voice shaking. "But being here has shown me that there's a way forward. I can rebuild my life." Her words struck a chord within me. The journey of forgiveness wasn't just mine, it was a shared experience that connected us all. I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose as I continued to guide others through their struggles while navigating my own healing process. As the concept of forgiveness took root in my heart, I began to embrace new beginnings in my life. I decided to focus on my passion for writing, expanding my outreach to share my story with a broader audience. Writing had always been an outlet for me, a way to express my thoughts and feelings. I started submitting articles to local magazines and blogs, detailing my journey through betrayal, healing, and ultimately self-discovery. Each piece felt like a small victory, a way to reclaim my narrative and provide insight to others who might be facing similar challenges. The feedback I received was overwhelmingly positive. Readers reached out to share their stories, expressing how my words had resonated with their own experiences. It was gratifying to know that I could connect with others through my writing, and I felt a sense of fulfillment I hadn't experienced in a long time. Meanwhile, the wellness program continued to flourish. Rick and I hosted monthly retreats that combined physical training, meditation, and group discussions. We invited guest speakers who had overcome their own battles, creating a diverse platform for healing and growth. The community we had built became a refuge for many, a place where vulnerability was celebrated and strength was born from shared experiences. One weekend during a retreat, I stood at the front of the room, watching participants engage in discussions and exercises. "We are not defined by our pasts," I said, addressing the group. "We are the architects of our futures. Together we can create something beautiful from our struggles." As the participants listened, I felt a sense of purpose swell within me. I had come full circle, transforming my pain into a source of strength for others. I realized that every step I had taken since discovering Kelly's betrayal had been part of a greater journey, one that was leading me toward a life filled with purpose and connection. Months passed, and I found myself in a place I never thought I'd reach. The wounds from my past had healed, replaced by a profound understanding of who I was and what I wanted from life. I was no longer defined by Kelly's betrayal. Instead, I was a product of my resilience and growth. Rick and I decided to expand our wellness program, opening a second location to reach even more individuals in need of support. Our vision had become a reality, and I couldn't help but feel proud of what we had accomplished together. We had created a community rooted in understanding, healing, and empowerment. One afternoon, as I sat in the new gym, I reflected on the journey that had led me here. I thought about the darkness I had faced, the anger I had felt, and the eventual decision to embrace forgiveness. It was liberating to acknowledge that I had the power to shape my life, no longer allowing my past to dictate my future. As participants filled the gym, laughter and camaraderie filled the air. I observed the connections forming, people supporting one another, sharing stories, and building friendships. The transformation was palpable, and I felt a sense of belonging I hadn't known in years. In that moment, I realized that my journey was not just about overcoming betrayal. It was about discovering a deeper sense of purpose and connection. I had forged new relationships, not only with Rick, but also with everyone who had become part of our community. Together, we had created something remarkable, a safe haven for healing and growth. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the gym, I knew that life was full of possibilities. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, armed with the lessons I had learned and the connections I had made. I had emerged from the shadows, stepping into a future filled with hope, resilience, and a commitment to helping others find their own paths to healing.